Hey, good morning. Thank you for braving the balmy weather to be here today. It's always a bit of a risk when you come out to hear a missionary speak at church, so thank you for taking the risk. I'm glad that you can be here. As Jamie told you, my name is Andy Giessman, and I'm the Executive Director of Addison's Walk Institute for Christian Studies. In your bulletin this morning, you should have received a little bookmark. I hope you got that, with a little bit of contact information on there for you, that you can look some stuff up about our ministry. If you did not get one, there are stacks of them by the little display there on the back table. What I'm going to do this morning is I'm just going to explain to you what Addison's Walk is. I'm also going to tell you where the name came from. And then I want to share with you an idea that I have. It's a big, hairy, audacious, scary idea. And I want to share it with you because it is something that if it's going to happen, God's going to have to do it, and I'm going to need you to pray alongside of us for that to happen. First, let me just say thank you for the support that you have given to Addison's Walk. This church was one of the first places that I presented the ministry well over 3 years ago. I was not part of this church then. You all were still in this building. And I don't think anybody was really thinking about moving to Clark Summit at that point. So that was a long time ago. And you all were early adopters in getting on board with helping us, and we're very thankful for that. This past year, God has been good to us. At this time, a year ago, we were not looking that great. We had less than $500 in the ministry checking account. And I wasn't sure what we were going to do. Now, at the end of 2017, we're looking much better. God has been very good to us this year. He's allowed me to have some pretty good speaking engagements, which have brought in some extra help. We've picked up another church or two as far as supporting organizations. So God is really being good to us. So that means we can continue another year. Now, Addison's Walk, what does that mean? A lot of people say Addison's. Is that like Addison's disease? Is this some kind of medical thing? I'm not even sure I know what Addison's disease is. I should probably look that up because I've been asked more than once. No, that's not what it is. Addison's Walk is the name of a wooded pathway that surrounds Magdalen College in Oxford, England. If you saw it spelled, you would pronounce it Magdalen. But if you want to be proper and snooty and British about it, you say Magdalen. That's how you pronounce it. And it is a wooded pathway that is there outside of Magdalen College. Actually, it goes around a deer park, and they have deer from all over the world in this park. It's really quite amazing. And it was there at this wooded pathway about 80 years ago that two men walked around that wooded pathway in the dead of night having a very important conversation. Those two men were J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. When they took that stroll, C.S. Lewis was an atheist. And they walked around that wooded pathway, and it was there that Lewis said to his friend Tolkien, after an evening of conversation and reading, he said, all the great hero stories deeply move me, yet I'm still unsatisfied, because they're all just lies. They sound like truth, because they are lies that are breathed through silver, but they still sound true, but they are not. And Tolkien said, well, Jack, you see, that's where you're wrong. They're not just lies. They actually mean something. And he said that all great hero stories point to the one true hero story that happened in time and space. And C.S. Lewis, who many of us in this room know to be the greatest Christian author of the 20th century, was at that moment an atheist. And he said to Tolkien, he said, surely you're not talking about the story of Jesus of Nazareth. And Tolkien said, yes, I am. All great hero stories point to the one true hero story that actually happened in time and space, whether they happened before or after. And what you need to realize is that this is the one hero story that will radically change your destiny and completely alter your life if you would just listen to it. And over the next several hours, J.R.R. Tolkien patiently, lovingly, creatively, and intellectually explained the gospel to his friend. C.S. Lewis later said that it was that night and that conversation that he moved from atheist to theist. And it was a few weeks later that he realized Jesus is God, and asked him to forgive him of his sins and became the C.S. Lewis that many of us know. I read that story several years ago, and it has stuck with me, and I want to create that environment for college students. Addison's Walk basically means that I am a missionary to college students. And I want to create that environment where they can ask those hard questions and actually get answers that go beyond, well, you just need to stop doubting, you just need to believe. I actually want to give them intelligent, reasonable answers as to why I believe what I believe and why I think it can radically alter their lives. So my in, then, with college students is that I'm an adjunct professor at both Marywood University and the University of Scranton. I teach theology and philosophy, some combination thereof. Off and on at those two schools, I have taught 4 unique classes between the two colleges. I'm adding a 5th one this coming semester. And I regularly have over 100 students that come through my classroom, and we are talking about the fundamental questions of life. Where did I come from? What is my purpose? Where am I going? How do I know the difference between right and wrong? Do I have a soul? Is there a God? Are there reasons to think about that? And I let them know up front. I tell them on the first day I am a Christian, and I tell them what that means, because in that environment, I'm not sure how they would identify what a Christian is. So here's my definition. I say I'm a Christian, and what that means is that I follow the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. He is my hope, and he has my allegiance. It's kind of succinct, don't you think? And then I tell them a little bit about my background, and truth be told, I do this more for shock value than for anything else, because it's just funny. I tell them, oh, by the way, I pastored a Baptist church for 10 years here in town, and the look of shock on their face is just brilliant. And some of them are thinking, oh no, we got that guy. A few of them are thinking, oh good, we got that guy. And then a lot of them are thinking, how in the world does that happen? How do you go from pastoring a Baptist church and winding up being a professor in one of these schools? And because I conduct my classroom in an environment where I encourage questions, there is nothing off limits as long as they maintain a level of respect and they don't try to hurt my feelings. I say, you are free to ask anything you want. We have cleared the table of a lot of the nonsense that has disallowed them from asking hard questions, and they come see me. And it is there in my office or over a cup of coffee. You need to pray, because I drink my own weight in coffee every week. Every day sometimes, because I buy a lot of coffee for students, and it's over a cup of coffee that we have conversations, much like happened 85 years ago on that wooden pathway outside of Magdalen College in Oxford, England, where I get to pull the average 18, 19, 20-year-old back from the edge and explain to them there is more to this life than what you have been told your whole life. There is more. And they get to watch me and, by God's grace, look at my example. They say, you seem like you know something that we don't. Could you help us understand? It's an amazing ministry. And I hope to be able to continue to do that. I'm teaching this coming semester 2 classes at Marywood. I'm not teaching at the U. It's just the ebb and flow. They don't need me this semester. That's okay. They're letting me keep my office. That's a good sign. I will be teaching there in the fall, so I'll be teaching just 2 classes at Marywood this coming semester. Introduction to Philosophy and a class on existentialism. That means we're going to be reading a lot of angry German guys. And I'm really looking forward to doing both of those, and it's good that I'm only teaching 6 credits as opposed to 12. It was just too much last semester. So we are going to continue to do that for this coming semester, and we'll see how God uses that. If you have questions about more specifics, I'm happy to stick around and answer questions. We're very often the last ones to leave. Like, the pastor's like, come on already. So, so if you have questions, I'm very happy to answer them for you. I would say let's have a question and answer time at the end of this talk, but that would be a Christmas miracle that we're going to have any time left over, because I am conditioned to teach in 90-minute segments, so I got to talk fast. All right. So, what I would like to do is, I want to share my idea with you, but I got to share a story. That's okay, right? I thought so. I want to share it in story form. I want to tell you about what we want to do next, because my ministry, I have to be careful. Unlike Other college ministries that you might be familiar with, like Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Campus Crusade, InterVarsity. Have you ever heard of any of these? Ratio Christi, there's lots of them out there. Unlike those organizations, I do not have any, as an organization, official relationship with the schools in which I teach. We're below the radar. They will not allow any outside Christian organization to be on campus. Did you hear what I said? They will not allow any outside Christian organization to be on campus, to have an active ministry there. If you are a non-Christian religious group, sure, they'll bend over backwards for you. But they will not allow any non-Catholic Christian organization to be on campus. We are a non-denominational organization, but that's not good enough. So we operate beneath the radar. So I cannot advertise. I do not proselytize in the classroom. I don't even tell students about what my real job is. We just have to let it come out as the class goes, and God uses that in a pretty exciting way. But what that means is that I have to be very patient and wait for students to come to me. I ask God to help me, to direct me to students that need me, to speak with them. I can't just openly say, hey, we're having a Bible study at our house, come on over. I can't do that. I would get dismissed really fast, and therefore I would have no contact with students at all. So I have to be careful. And I've been thinking, how can we do something that we're going to have a more direct impact? So I have an idea, and I want to tell you the story of where this idea came from. And you can tell me what you think when we are done. So last summer of 2016, I had an awesome opportunity. Through the help of some of our donors and some friends, I was able to attend the Ravi Zacharias Summer School in Oxford. So I went to England last summer. If you don't know who Ravi Zacharias is, he is a pretty well-known apologist. That means that he defends Christianity. He has a global reach. He has partners in ministry all around the world. He's very well known. As a young man, tried to take his life, and he grew up in India, tried to take his life, and while he was recovering in the hospital, someone came and shared the gospel with him, and he gave his life to Jesus, and his life has never been the same. And a friend of mine at one of our supporting churches in North Carolina was going to this conference. He said, you have to come with me. Of all the people that I know who I want to take, I want to take you because you're into this stuff. And I thought, I can never go to England. That's impossible because it's expensive to get to England, and it's expensive to live in England for a week. But I put the word out to our supporters, and people graciously gave the money necessary for me to be able to go. And I went to England, and I had a wonderful experience. And I got to do things like actually put my feet on Addison's Walk. Those of you who are friends of mine on Facebook, my profile picture is me standing on Addison's Walk. I'm all kinds of giddy in that picture. So I got to go to England and experience some wonderful things. I experienced some things that weren't so wonderful. I ate more meat pies than I care to talk about. And I could not get a decent cup of coffee for a week. I know I should have just drank tea, but I was being the ugly American. But I had a wonderful experience with this whole conference. In fact, it is hands down the best conference I ever attended. For those of you who have ever attended something like that, any kind of conference, you probably think like I do, is you're going to them, you're hoping, oh, just let me have one thing that I can bring home and use. This, my problem was, what am I going to skip so that I can sightsee? I was really in a pickle trying to figure out, is there anything I dare skip, because it was all that good. It was wonderful. They had something like 15 unique speakers, and they limited the attendance to 120, and the speakers made themselves very available to us. We were going out to lunch with people, whether you know their names or not, it doesn't matter, but we were going out to lunch with people and really getting to know them. It was fantastic. And there are three things that happened while I was in England that led me to the idea that I had. The first is this. The conference was held in a church called St. Aldate's. Now again, if you want to be proper, it's St. Aldate's. That's how they say it there. In England, it's on St. Giles Street. And for those of you who are Harry Potter fans, This church is directly across the street from Christ Church College, the largest college in the Oxford University system, and it is in Christ Church in their hall where they filmed many of the dining hall scenes from Harry Potter. So for those of you who are Harry Potter nerds, there you have it. And so the conference was held in this church. Now my friend Ben and I got there the day before it started, a full day, 24 hours. It didn't start till Sunday nights. We got there a full day before it started, so we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for church on that Sunday morning, and we decided we were going to go to St. Aldate's. Now, St. Aldate's is an Anglican church. It is an evangelical Anglican church. They preach the gospel, they preach from the Bible, but what you need to know about that church is that the actual church is 1,200 years old. Think about it. The church is 1,200 years old. For those of you like myself who have perhaps grown up in church, you may have visited an old country Baptist church, and there are those brass plaques that are on pews or something. It says, "This pew is in memory of Margaret Higginbottom, 1895 or something," right? Have you seen those? They had stuff at that church in the floor from the 15th century. It's old. According to the church historians, this church was founded by Celtic missionaries. So people from Ireland came over to England and planted this church. Pretty amazing. And it was wonderful. And if you had attended the service like I did, you would have not seen anything weird or out of the ordinary. It felt like a regular church service to me in a very old building. One of their pastors came and began a series on suffering, looking at through the eyes of the biblical character of Joseph. It was great. Kind of wish I could have been there for the rest of it. And then at the end, they did a baby dedication. Now, the Anglicans, they believe in baby baptisms. This church does that, but they also do baptism by immersion for adults. And their baby baptisms are more like a baby dedication than they are like saying that by doing this baptism, they're not saying that, all right, now this child can come to know Jesus or something. It's kind of more symbolic for them. And I was very interested to watch that, and so they brought up this little boy. He's about 5 years old. His father is a PhD candidate at Oxford in the graduate school. And they brought up the whole family, and they're having this conversation with them. And it was a baby dedication unlike one that I've ever seen. Now, I pastored for nearly 10 years in Scranton, and I was asked to do baby dedications, and I really kind of hated it, frankly. Because it always felt more like we want to show off our kid more than anything else. And it was kind of more like balloons and cake, and I'm like, I don't know. So I would do it because there are things you have to do. You just do it as a pastor, but I never really liked it. This was far different. There was a responsive reading. Actually, it went 3 different ways. The pastor, the rector, he read some stuff. It was all in PowerPoint. The family would say some things. They had some things that they had to say, and we, the congregation, actually said some stuff. And so there was this whole 3-way conversation going on with this baby dedication. It was the end of it that caught my attention. Here was the last thing that we said, and the family had to respond. If God were to call your child to a life of great sacrifice and service, would you neither complain nor hold them back? Let me read that again. Here's what we read to the family. Are you listening? If God were to call your child to a life of great sacrifice and service, would you neither complain nor hold them back? And the parents needed to answer, we will. Friends, I've seen and I have done a lot of baby dedications. I've never heard or seen anything like that. And I turned to my friend Ben, who is also a pastor, and I said, have you ever seen anything like that before? And he said, no. We had never, ever heard of anything like that. Now, maybe it was just all show. I don't know. I can't really judge. I literally went to one church service in this church, one time, one day. That's all I know. But that sounded pretty serious to me. It sounded far more serious than I want my child to be a football star and be the most popular kid on Facebook. It sounded a lot different than saying I need to make sure my child has everything that he or she needs and wants. So that's the first experience. Second experience was we at the conference were invited to go up to what's called the Oxford Center for Christian Apologetics, or ACA for short. And we were invited to go see what they do up there. Now, I said, yeah, I want to do that because it sounded like what I do with our ministry. I was totally wrong. It's not what we do at all. ACA, the Oxford Center for Christian Apologetics, is the European headquarters for the Ravi Zacharias International Ministries Training Center. So if you want to be part of Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, be on their team, you have to go to ACA there and study. And I found out later the reason we were invited to come look at that is that there were a lot of wealthy people at this conference, and so they were just kind of giving an infomercial. I was not one of them, but I wanted to see what it looked like. I wanted to see what it was all about. And as a bonus, it was only a block from J.R.R. Tolkien's house. So that was kind of cool. Like a creeper, I'm taking pictures of his house. And yes, somebody does live there. So they're probably used to it. That's okay. Let me explain what apologetics means, just in case you don't know. Apologetics is a gospel ministry that does two things. The first thing it does is that it gives the Christian confidence in why they believe what they believe. It helps us to know why we believe what we believe. The second thing that apologetics does is that it smooths the road toward belief for the skeptic. So if someone says, well, I cannot believe in God because I think the Bible is false, well, then we would talk about why we can actually trust the Bible as a historic document. Or if someone says, well, I don't think we need to believe in God at all, I think that the universe can just come from nothing. Well, apologetics can actually answer why that's impossible and can explain how there has to be a creator or a designer. So that's what apologetics does. So this Oxford Center for Christian Apologetics, they invite people from all over the world for a 2-year program. And they come and they study 30 graduate credits. Now, I'm asking all kinds of questions about this. I'm saying, now, who comes? And they're saying, well, you have to be a college graduate. And many of the people that come to participate in this program are actual graduate students at Oxford, and they're doing 20 hours a week of instruction on top of that at the Oxford Center for Christian Apologetics. And at the end of the time, their 30 credits transfers nowhere. It is unaccredited. They get a certificate of completion, and they're done. And people are fighting to get into this thing, and it's wicked expensive. They said that the average cost, the price tag, is 50,000 pounds. Those of you who know anything about the difference between the dollar and the pound, that's a lot of money. That's something like, what, $80,000? That's a lot of money. And people are coming from all over the world to come to this. And I'm asking questions. I'm going, wait. People want to come here and they want to study to learn how to think better Christianly. And they're fighting to do it. And some of them are in school already. Now, Ravi Zacharias International Ministries has deep pockets. So they're able to scholarship a lot of people. But I thought, wait, what? There are young people who want to come here to do this? I turn 46 next week, so I'm allowed to say young people. And I was just shocked by that. And I don't know this for certain, but I have no reason to think otherwise. God started asking me a question saying, yeah, Andy, do you think there's anything that you could do that kids might want to get involved with like that? Third thing that happened. Can I go to 11? Are good? Is that a solid yes, or you're up there, somebody's going to let you go? Okay. All right. Third thing. There is a member of the Ravi Zacharias team. His name is John Lennox. Probably a name that many of you have never heard before. He is an older gentleman who hails from Northern Ireland. He is a professor emeritus of mathematics at Oxford. He actually holds 3 PhDs. I've never heard of that before. That's just insane. And he spoke every day at this conference for our morning chapel. And I was pretty excited about that. And he spoke every day on a book that he has written a couple years ago called Against the Flow, and it's about the book of Daniel. I hadn't read the book yet. I'm familiar with it, and I'm familiar with his work, but I'm really interested in that, and I wanted to hear what he had to say. Oh, by the way, let me tell you a little bit about John Lennox. This is just for fun. How many of you are familiar with the music ministry of Keith and Kristen Getty? Okay, John Lennox is Kristen Getty's uncle. He just told us one day, he said, some of you may have heard of my niece. She goes by the name of Kristen Getty. What? So I actually met Kristen Getty's father, Gilbert. So he's a pastor in Northern Ireland. He was there at the conference as well. And he spoke to us about Daniel. And I was really into that because I like Old Testament history. I like that stuff. And I love looking at stuff through the lens of worldview, which is what Lennox wanted to do. And on the first day, he made a statement that I thought was so bold. I've never heard anything like this before. He said, you know, we usually think that the amazing thing about Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, better known as Abednego. Yeah, if you're like me, you got to stop and think about their actual Hebrew names. They didn't go around calling each other by their Babylonian names, I don't think. They probably called themselves by their Hebrew names. So Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. We usually think, Lennox said, that the amazing thing about those four boys, who were probably around 15 years old, when they arrived at the University of Babylon, King's College, Ashpenaz is the dean of students. They have a meal plan, they have ID cards, you can read all this in the first chapter of Daniel. And you read about their adventures, that the greatest thing about them is that they maintain their faith in God. Lennox said, no. That's not the amazing thing about those four boys. It's not that they maintained a private faith in God. You see, it's easy to maintain a private faith in anything as long as you keep your mouth shut. Is it not? The amazing thing about Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah is that they maintain a high-profile public witness for God in a hostile environment. I'll say it again. The amazing thing about those four boys is that they maintained a high-profile public witness for God in a hostile environment. Daniel, we are told specifically, rose to basically the position of prime minister in two world empires, the Babylonian and the Persian. And he had a significant impact on both of them. I was shocked by that statement. And I began thinking about the 20 plus years that I have been involved with high school and college ministry, and how I've met so many parents, and how I've even thought myself that the greatest goal for any kid going to college, whether it be a secular school or basically secular school where I teach, or even a Christian college, is that they merely maintain their faith in God. If that is our goal, ladies and gentlemen, we are aiming far too low. Way too low. If we are wondering why our colleges and universities are falling apart, it's probably because our goal is far too low. If all we want is for our students to maintain a private faith in God, nothing good will ever come of that. So I started thinking, I started praying, I started asking God, what do you want me to do? Because clearly something is going on. My soul was afire at the end of this conference. Those three things and all the other teaching, I could go on for hours and tell you about all the wonderful things I learned, the horrible cups of coffee I drank, and all that kind of stuff. I could go on for hours and tell you all about that. Here's what it comes down to. I would like to start what is known as a gap year program in Scranton for 18 to 20-year-old college students, high school graduates. I want to invite the average 18 to 20-year-old to come spend a year with us, and we will teach them how to think Christianly. We're going to study philosophy, ethics, history, literature, deeply immersed in solid Christian theology. We're going to invite them to live in community. What that means, and here's the big audacious part of this, is that we're going to need to purchase a couple large properties, multifamily homes in Scranton. Men's facility, women's facility. We will need to bring in instructors for them. We need to hire residential directors and maintenance staff. Now, if we have the students, we have the tuition dollars, we'll be able to do all that. It's just a question of how do we get the property, and then when do we get the students, or do we get the students and then the property? These are questions that need to be answered. But here's the end goal, ladies and gentlemen. I want to invite college students to come spend a year with us. I want to invite their parents as we kick off a year of study together. And I will look at their parents and I will say, if God is to call your child to a life of great sacrifice and service, would you neither complain nor hold them back? If they cannot answer, we will, they go home. I will say to those parents, we are going to dare you to send us your sons and daughters to become the warrior poets for the King, who think well, who create well, who minister well, who can then go back after a year to wherever they want to go to school, whether it's a Christian college, great, state school, excellent, to make a dent in history for the cause of Jesus Christ. It is a great, huge dream. 3 words that will drive this program, should God allow us to get started. The first is, and there are 3 Greek words, Sophia. Sophia, which is also kind of the name of our cat. That's unfortunate. But Sophia is Greek for wisdom. So the word philosophy is the love of wisdom. We want our students to come and we want them to meet Lady Wisdom and deeply fall in love with her. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 1. My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding. Indeed, if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, if you look for it as for silver and search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From the mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He holds success in store for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk is blameless. For he guards the course of the just and protects the way of the faithful ones. Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. We want to train a generation of students who have met Lady Wisdom and fall deeply in love with her, and will chase hard after her for the rest of their lives and cause others to follow. Second word, hypostasis, which comes from the best definition of faith in the Bible and also the most misunderstood passage, and that's Hebrews 11:1. And I prefer the translation that says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The word hypostasis is that word substance in Hebrews 11:1. We want them to have a faith that is substantive, that is evidential, that is solid, that means something. We do not want them to merely have faith in faith. I just started reading a book by an uber atheist who's writing this book about the difference between science and faith. And he keeps talking over and over again in this book about people who merely have faith in faith or faith in religion and nothing gets done. I agree with him. That's pointless. If you have faith in nothing, it is nothing. It's kind of like what Pastor Jamie said. If we have faith that 2018 is going to be good to us, that's stupid. It's time. It can't do anything except move ahead. So we want them to have a confident faith. And then the last word is marturion. One of the passages that you would probably be familiar with that contains that word is Acts 1:8, in which Jesus says, you will be my witnesses here, on the outside, and abroad. The word marturion is where we get our word witness from, but it is also where we get our word martyr. we should not forget those two things. I do not know what the next 12 months will hold for Addison's Walk. We have $0 to begin this program. We have more money in the bank than we did a year ago, but not so much that we can go out and make a purchase on a home. There's a lot of pieces that have to come into place. I'm not sure that we can do this, but I think we need to. I think we must. There are a few programs like this in the United States. There are not enough. We want to call the sons and daughters of parents to come to Scranton, of all places, for a year to live in community. We're going to ask them to read things harder than they have ever read before. We're going to ask them to think more than they ever have. We're going to teach them to ask questions. We're going to try to disabuse them of the notion that everything can be learned via Facebook, YouTube, and TED Talks. We're going to dare them to think. And then at the end of 12 months, then we're going to dare them to engage. We're going to turn them loose. The world needs it. Our universities need it. Churches need it. Will you pray with me that God would see this come to pass?